Two security guards blocked my entry to my own son's wedding, showing me a photograph of myself with explicit orders. If this man attempts to enter, immediately escort him out. I watched my entire family walk through the grand doors of the ballroom while I was shoved away like a criminal, utterly humiliated in front of dozens of guests who had known me for years. My name is Charles Benton. I am 71 years old, and on the 15th of March, 2024, I experienced the most demeaning moment of my life. I arrived at the Corinthian Houston at 6:15 inches the evening, wearing my best navy blue bespoke suit, which I had specially tailored for my son, Wesley's wedding. In my inside pocket, I carried an envelope with a check for $30,000 as a gift. In my heart, I held the pure joy of seeing my only son marry Veronica Lane, the woman he claimed to love. But I never made it through those doors. As I approached the main entrance, two burly men in black suits and earpieces planted themselves in front of me with severe expressions. One of them, the taller man, pulled out his phone and showed me the screen. It was a photograph of me, likely taken from my social media, with my full name underneath, Charles Benton. "Are you this person?" he asked in an authoritative voice. I nodded, confused. "Yes, I am. I am here for my son Wesley Benton's wedding." The guard exchanged a look with his partner, then stared straight into my eyes. "I am sorry, sir, but we have express instructions not to allow you entry to this event." For a few seconds, I thought it was a sick joke. I let out a nervous laugh. "There must be a mistake. I am the groom's father." "There is no mistake, sir," the second guard, younger but equally firm, replied. "Mr. Wesley Benton provided your photograph personally this morning, and he was very clear. If you attempt to enter, we must prevent it, and if necessary, escort you off the premises." I felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath my feet. My son, my own son, had given specific orders to keep me out of his wedding. I tried to keep my composure. I took a deep breath. "There has to be a misunderstanding," I insisted, pulling out my phone to call Wesley. "Let me speak to him." The taller guard extended his arm, physically blocking me. "Sir, I ask you to leave voluntarily, or I will be forced to request additional support." It was at that moment I saw my ex-wife, Patricia Hollins, arrive with her sister. Patricia saw me. Our eyes locked for an agonizing second, and then she simply looked away, took her sister's arm, and walked past the guards without issue. The guards greeted them politely and let them enter as if nothing were happening. "Patricia!" I shouted her name. But she hurried her pace and disappeared inside the ballroom. More guests started arriving. I recognized several cousins, uncles, and family friends who had had dinner at my house hundreds of times. They all showed their invitations and walked past. Some looked at me with uncomfortable expressions. Others pretended not to recognize me. No one stopped. No one asked what was going on. Then I saw my daughter Denise Benton Clark arriving with her husband Terrence. My heart leaped with hope. Denise saw me immediately. Her eyes widened in surprise. But when she took a step toward me, Terrence grabbed her arm and whispered something in her ear. Denise lowered her head and kept walking. They also let her pass without a problem. "Denise, please," I pleaded, but she did not turn around. The younger guard moved closer. "Sir, you are causing a scene. I ask you again to leave." "A scene?" I repeated, feeling rage bubble in my chest. "They are preventing me from entering my son's wedding. I paid for his Prairie View A and M tuition. I helped him buy his first car. I was there for him when no one else was. You will have to resolve that with your family, sir." "But it will not be today, and it will not be here," the guard replied with professional firmness. More guests continued to arrive. Some started pulling out their phones, probably photographing or recording the situation. The humiliation was complete. Charles Benton, the black entrepreneur who had built Benton Heritage Construction LLC from the ground up, the man who had supported his family with honest work for 45 years, was being thrown out of his own son's wedding like an unwanted beggar. The taller guard spoke into his earpiece. "We need support at the main entrance. We have the situation contained, but require an exit escort." Two more guards appeared from inside the building. Now there were 4 men surrounding me. "It is not necessary," I said, raising my hands. "I will leave on my own." But they would not let me leave with dignity. The 4 of them escorted me all the way to the parking lot, one on each side. as if I were a dangerous criminal. Arriving guests stopped to watch the spectacle. I heard murmurs, muffled laughs, the constant click of camera phones. When we reached my black Cadillac Escalade, the original guard said, "I recommend you leave the property immediately, Mr. Benton. If you return, we will call the police." I got into the car, my hands trembling. I closed the door, and the 4 guards stood there watching, making sure I actually left. I put the key in the ignition, but I did not start the engine. I could not. My vision blurred, but not from tears. It was something different. It was a cold, crystalline clarity beginning to form in my mind. I took out my phone and opened the voice recorder app. I pressed the red recording button. The 15th of March, 2024, 6:47 p.m. The Corinthian, Houston. I have just been physically expelled from my son Wesley Benton's wedding by 4 security guards under his express orders. Witnesses present, approximately 35 guests, including Patricia Hollins, Denise Benton Clark, and various relatives. None intervened. I stopped the recording and saved it with the date and time. Then I took my phone and photographed the building, the entrance, and the guards still watching me from a distance. I documented everything meticulously. The guards finally turned and returned to the ballroom. I still did not start the engine. I stayed there, sitting, watching more guests arrive, laugh, and celebrate. I could hear the music starting inside. My son was getting married at this very moment, and I was in the parking lot, alone, publicly humiliated. But something strange was happening inside me. I did not feel despair. I felt something much more dangerous, absolute lucidity. I remained seated in my Escalade for 40 minutes without moving a muscle. The evening sun streamed through the windshield, casting patterns of light on my quiet hands on the steering wheel. I did not cry. I did not punch anything. I simply let my mind work, reconstructing the last 10 months, as if they were pieces of a puzzle that were finally beginning to make sense. May 2023. That was the first time Wesley mentioned Veronica Lane. We had planned to have lunch at our usual spot, Pappas Brothers Steakhouse, as we did every Sunday since he moved into his own apartment 6 years ago. He arrived 25 minutes late, which was unusual for him, and throughout the meal, he kept looking at his phone with a foolish smile on his face. "I met someone, Dad," he told me between bites of his ribeye steak. "Her name is Veronica. She is incredible." I remember being genuinely happy. My son was 38 years old and had had few serious relationships. His dedication to the company had always come first, which I admired but also worried about. A man needs balance. A man needs someone to come home to. "Tell me about her," I asked with sincere interest. We met at the gym near my office, Fitness Evolution on Westheimer. She is a personal trainer there. I was struggling with the cable machine, and she came over to help me with my form. He laughed that nervous laugh of a recently smitten man. She is 34, originally from Dallas. She moved to Houston about 2 years ago. She is sweet and understanding, Dad. Different from anyone I have ever met. A casual meeting. How convenient. How perfectly orchestrated. I thought now with clarity, sitting in my Escalade outside my son's wedding. But back then, I saw none of it. I was simply a father, happy that his son had found someone. June 2023. Wesley canceled our first Sunday lunch. "Veronica and I have plans," he said over the phone. "She wants to show me this hiking trail at Memorial Park." "Rain check?" I said, of course, thinking nothing of it. New relationships require nurturing. I understood that. July 2023. He canceled again. This time it was a weekend trip to Galveston. "She has never seen the beach there, Dad. I want to make it special for her." Again, I understood. I remembered being young and in love with Patricia, wanting to show her the world. August 2023. The third cancellation. A cooking class they had signed up for together. "Veronica says we need to learn to cook as a team before we move in together," Wesley explained. I paused at that. Moving in together after only 3 months? But I kept my concerns to myself. My son was a grown man. He could make his own decisions. September 2023. Wesley finally brought Veronica to my house for Sunday dinner. I had prepared my famous smoked brisket, the recipe my mother had taught me 50 years ago. I wanted to impress her. I wanted her to feel welcome in our family. She arrived wearing an elegant sundress, carrying a bottle of expensive wine. Her smile was bright, her handshake firm. "Mr. Benton, Wesley has told me so much about you. Building a construction empire from nothing. You are truly an inspiration." I liked her immediately. She asked intelligent questions about the business, listened attentively to my stories, and laughed at my jokes. She complimented the brisket 3 times. When she excused herself to use the restroom, Wesley leaned over and whispered, "What do you think, Dad?" "She seems wonderful, son. I'm happy for you." And I meant it. At that moment, I truly meant it. October 2023. The changes began so subtly that I almost missed them. Wesley started arriving late to work. Not by much, just 15 or 20 minutes here and there. He who had always been the first one at the office, often beating even me. When I mentioned it casually, he shrugged. "Veronica likes to have breakfast together. She says it is important for couples to start the day connected." November 2023. Wesley asked me for an advance on his yearly bonus. $15,000. He said Veronica's car had broken down and needed extensive repairs. I gave it to him without hesitation. What father would not help his son? December 2023. At the company Christmas party, I overheard a conversation that planted the first seed of doubt in my mind. Wesley was talking to his cousin Raymond near the bar. I was approaching to join them when I heard Raymond say, "Man, Veronica is something else. Where did you say she worked before the gym?" Wesley's response made me slow my steps. She had some financial consulting job in Dallas, but she said the corporate world was soul-crushing. That is why she switched to fitness training. She wanted to help people in a more direct way. Financial consulting. The detail stuck in my mind like a splinter. A financial consultant who became a personal trainer and just happened to meet my son, heir to an $8.5 million construction company, at a gym near his office. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself that people change careers all the time. I told myself to stop being a suspicious old man and let my son be happy. January 2024. Wesley announced their engagement at a family dinner. He had proposed on New Year's Eve, just 8 months after they met. Veronica showed off a diamond ring that must have cost at least $20,000. My son's entire savings, I calculated silently. The wedding was set for the 15th of March 2024, less than 3 months away. "Why the rush?" I asked Wesley privately after dinner. "Veronica does not want a long engagement. She says when you know, you know. And I know, Dad. She is the one." I nodded and hugged him. But that night, lying in bed, I could not sleep. Something felt wrong. I could not identify what exactly, but 45 years in business had taught me to trust my instincts, and my instincts were screaming that I was missing something important. February 2024. The month everything began to unravel. It started with a phone call from my daughter Denise. Her voice was hesitant, uncertain. "Dad, I need to tell you something, but I do not want you to overreact." "What is it, sweetheart?" "I had lunch with Wesley yesterday. He said some things that worried me. About you. About the company." My grip tightened on the phone. "What kind of things?" "He said that you have been holding him back, that you do not trust him to run things, that you have always favored Malcolm over him." She paused. "Dad, he said that Veronica helped him see the truth about how you have treated him all these years." I sat down heavily in my chair. In 38 years, Wesley had never expressed any of these feelings. We had disagreements, yes, but holding him back? Favoring Malcolm? These were not Wesley's words. These were someone else's poison being poured into my son's ear. I thanked Denise for telling me, and asked her to keep me informed of anything else she heard. Then I sat in silence for a long time, trying to understand how my relationship with my son had deteriorated so quickly without me noticing. The following Sunday, I invited Wesley to lunch at Pappas Brothers Steakhouse, just the two of us. He agreed reluctantly, saying he only had an hour because Veronica had planned something for the afternoon. When he arrived, I noticed he seemed tense, guarded. This was not the Wesley I knew. "Son, I heard some things that concerned me," I began carefully. "Denise mentioned that you feel I have been holding you back at the company. I want to understand where this is coming from." Wesley's jaw tightened. Of course Denise ran to tell you. She always takes your side. There are no sides, Wesley. We are family. Are we? He leaned forward, his eyes hard. Then why is Malcolm the chief operations officer while I am still a senior project manager? We have been at the company the same amount of time. I have brought in more clients than he has in the last 3 years. Malcolm is 7 years older than you. He has more experience in leadership roles. Your time will come, son. I have always planned for you to take over eventually. Eventually, Wesley repeated the word with bitterness. That is what you always say. Eventually. Meanwhile, I am 38 years old, and I am still waiting for my father to trust me. I do trust you. Then prove it. Make me a partner. Give me equity in the company. I stared at my son, trying to recognize him. In all our years working together, he had never demanded anything like this. He had always been patient, understanding that building a legacy takes time. Where is this coming from, Wesley? This does not sound like you. His expression flickered for just a moment, a crack in the mask. But then it hardened again. Maybe you never really knew me, Dad. Maybe I have been pretending to be the obedient son for too long. Veronica helped me see that I deserve more, that I have been settling for crumbs when I should be demanding my share. There it was, Veronica's name again. Every grievance, every complaint, every accusation traced back to her influence. I would like to have dinner with you and Veronica this week, I said calmly. Just the 3 of us, so we can discuss these concerns openly. She does not want to see you. Why not? Wesley hesitated. She says you make her uncomfortable. The way you looked at her at that first dinner, like you were evaluating her. She felt like she was being interviewed for a job instead of welcomed into a family. I had done no such thing. I had been nothing but warm and welcoming to Veronica. But I did not argue. Instead, I simply nodded. I am sorry she felt that way. It was not my intention. Wesley stood up abruptly. I have to go. Veronica's waiting. He left without finishing his meal. I sat there alone, staring at his half-eaten steak, feeling like I had just lost something precious that I did not know how to get back. Late February, 2024. The wedding preparations accelerated, and I found myself increasingly excluded from everything. When I offered to help pay for the venue, Wesley said Veronica's family was handling it. When I asked about the guest list, he said it was still being finalized. When I suggested we have a rehearsal dinner at my house, he said Veronica preferred a restaurant. Then came the phone call that connected the final dots. It was the 28th of February, 2024, just 2 weeks before the wedding. I was at the office late, reviewing contracts, when my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I had not seen in over 3 years. Patricia Hollins, my ex-wife. Charles, her voice was cold, businesslike. We need to talk. Patricia, this is unexpected. What do you want? I want you to give Wesley what he deserves. Make him a full partner in the company. Transfer 40% of your shares to him before the wedding. I almost laughed. And why would I do that? Because if you do not, you will lose him forever. Veronica and I have made sure of that. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Veronica and I. So there it was, the connection I had suspected but could not prove. What exactly are you saying, Patricia? I am saying that your son is finally seeing you for who you really are. A controlling, manipulative man who uses money to keep his children dependent on him. Veronica opened his eyes. I simply confirmed what she showed him. You have been talking to Veronica? Behind my back? Poisoning my son against me? Poisoning? Patricia laughed. I told him the truth. About how you hid assets during our divorce. About how you manipulated the children to take your side. About how you have always loved the company more than your own family. None of that is true. It does not matter if it is true, Charles. It only matters if Wesley believes it. And he does. He believes every word. I gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles ached. How do you know Veronica? How long have you two been planning this? Patricia was silent for a moment. Then she said, give Wesley his shares. Sign over 40% before the wedding. If you do, I will convince him to let you attend. If you do not, well, you have already seen how this will end. You are blackmailing me. I am giving you an opportunity to keep your family together. $3, 4 million in shares, and you get to watch your son get married. That seems like a fair trade to me. Go to hell, Patricia. I hung up the phone. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from rage. 45 years I had spent building Benton Heritage Construction. 45 years of 16-hour days, of sacrifices, of pouring everything I had into creating a legacy for my children. And now my ex-wife and a woman I had welcomed into my home were conspiring to steal it from me, using my own son as their weapon. I sat in my office until midnight, thinking. By the time I finally drove home, I had made a decision. If Patricia and Veronica wanted a war, I would give them one. But I would fight it on my terms, with weapons they could not see coming. The next morning I made 2 phone calls. The first was to my lawyer, Reginald Foster. The second was to a man named Leonard Hayes, a private investigator who had done work for my company in the past. Both agreed to meet me that afternoon. The investigation was about to begin. Leonard Hayes arrived at my office at 2 p.m. sharp. He was a tall man in his early 50s, with gray temples and the calm, observant eyes of someone who had spent 25 years on the Houston Police Department before retiring to open his own investigation firm. I had used his services twice before, both times for background checks on potential business partners. Both times, his work had been impeccable. Mr. Benton, he shook my hand firmly. Your message said this was urgent and personal. What can I do for you? I gestured for him to sit and close the office door. I need you to investigate 2 women. Veronica Lane, age 34, currently works as a personal trainer at Fitness Evolution on Westheimer, and Patricia Hollins, age 65, my ex-wife. I believe they are working together to defraud me of my assets through my son Wesley. Leonard pulled out a small notebook. What makes you believe this? I told him everything. The convenient meeting at the gym, the rapid engagement, Wesley's sudden personality change, the accusations that did not sound like my son's words. And finally, Patricia's phone call explicitly connecting herself to Veronica and demanding $3.4 million in company shares. Leonard listened, without interrupting, occasionally jotting down notes. When I finished, he looked up. You recorded that phone call with your ex-wife? No, I was too shocked to think of it. That is unfortunate, but not fatal. If what you are saying is true, there will be a trail. There is always a trail. People think they are careful, but they make mistakes. They use credit cards. They send emails. They meet in public places with security cameras. He closed his notebook. I will need a retainer of $10,000 to start. I should have preliminary findings within 2 weeks. I wrote him a check on the spot. Whatever you need, whatever it costs. I want to know everything about how these 2 women are connected and what their endgame is. Leonard stood and shook my hand again. You will have it, Mr. Benton. I will be in touch. The next 12 days were the longest of my life. I went through the motions at work, attending meetings, reviewing projects, signing documents. But my mind was elsewhere, constantly replaying every interaction with Veronica, searching for the signs I had missed. On the 10th of March, 2024, 5 days before the wedding, Leonard called. I have something. Can you meet me at my office this evening? You are going to want to see this in person. I arrived at his office at 7 p.m. It was a modest space in a professional building near the Galleria. Nothing fancy, but clean and organized. Leonard was waiting for me with a thick folder on his desk and a laptop open beside it. Sit down, Mr. Benton. This is going to take a while. He opened the folder and slid a photograph across the desk. It showed Veronica Lane and Patricia Hollins sitting together at a restaurant, leaning close, clearly deep in conversation. This was taken 14 months ago, January 2023, 4 months before Veronica supposedly accidentally met your son at the gym. My stomach dropped. They knew each other before. They have known each other for years. Leonard pulled out more photographs. Veronica Lane's real name is Veronica Marsh. She legally changed it in 2021. Before becoming a personal trainer, she worked as a financial advisor at a firm in Dallas. She was fired in 2019 for, and I quote, inappropriate relationships with high net worth clients. What does that mean exactly? It means she targeted wealthy men, gained their trust, and convinced them to make questionable financial decisions that benefited her. At least 2 clients filed complaints, but no criminal charges were ever brought. Leonard clicked on his laptop and turned the screen toward me. Here is where it gets interesting. Patricia Hollins and Veronica Marsh, first connected through a mutual acquaintance 3 years ago. I found email exchanges between them dating back to February 2022. In those emails, they discuss, and I quote directly, identifying the right target and timing the approach carefully. I felt sick. They have been planning this for over 2 years? At minimum, your son Wesley was not a random victim of a chance encounter. He was selected, researched, and approached according to a deliberate strategy. Leonard pulled out another document. I also found financial records showing that Patricia has been in significant debt since 2021. She owes approximately $280,000 to various creditors. Her lifestyle has far exceeded her income since your divorce. She got $1.2 million in the settlement. That was 8 years ago. And it is gone. All of it. Bad investments, expensive travel, a condo she could not afford. She is desperate, Mr. Benton. And desperate people do desperate things. Leonard handed me a printed email. This is from 6 months ago, September 2023. Patricia to Veronica. Read the highlighted section. I read aloud, my voice hollow. Phase 1 is complete. Wesley is fully committed. Begin Phase 2 immediately. Isolate him from Charles. Make him doubt everything his father has ever told him. By the time we reach Phase 3, he will sign whatever documents we put in front of him. I set the paper down. My hands were trembling. Phase 3. What is Phase 3? I believe Phase 3 is the wedding itself. Or more specifically, what happens after the wedding. Once Veronica is legally Wesley's wife, she has conjugal rights to his assets. And if Wesley becomes a partner in your company with 40% equity, she has access to that too. But I did not give Wesley any shares. I refused Patricia's demand. Leonard nodded slowly. Which is why they changed tactics. They could not get the shares before the wedding, so they decided to punish you. Remove you from the ceremony entirely. Humiliate you publicly. Destroy your relationship with Wesley so completely that you would eventually give in just to have your son back. I sat in silence, absorbing the magnitude of the betrayal. My ex-wife and a professional con artist had spent 2 years constructing an elaborate trap using my own son as bait. Every canceled lunch, every accusation, every cold look from Wesley, it was all manufactured, scripted, rehearsed. There is one more thing, Leonard said, reaching into the folder. I found evidence that Veronica has done this before, not with the same level of planning, but the pattern is similar. She targets men from wealthy families, creates divisions between them and their relatives, and positions herself to benefit financially. He handed me a final document. It was a court filing from 2018, a lawsuit in Dallas. The plaintiff was a man named Richard Brennan, age 52, suing Veronica Marsh for fraud and emotional manipulation. The case was settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. This woman is a predator, Mr. Benton, and your son is her latest prey. I gathered the documents carefully, stacking them into a neat pile. Evidence, proof, weapons. What do you recommend I do with this information? Leonard leaned back in his chair. That depends on what you want. If you want to save your son's marriage, show him these documents before the wedding. But I warn you, he may not believe you. He has been conditioned for months to distrust everything you say. And if I want something else? If you want to protect your assets and eventually bring your son back to reality, you need to let this play out. Let the wedding happen. Let Veronica show her true colors when she realizes there is no money waiting for her. People like her always reveal themselves when the prize disappears. I stood up, tucking the folder under my arm. Thank you, Leonard. Send me your final invoice, and keep digging. I want to know everything there is to know about Veronica Lane, Veronica Marsh, or whatever her real name is. Every lie she has ever told, every person she has ever hurt. I want a complete picture of who she really is. Over the next 4 days, Leonard delivered exactly what I asked for. Every morning, a new email arrived with additional documentation. Phone records showing over 200 calls between Patricia and Veronica in the past 18 months. Bank statements revealing 3 wire transfers from Patricia to Veronica totaling $15,000, labeled as consulting fees. Screenshots of text messages recovered through legal means that explicitly discussed their strategy. One message from Patricia to Veronica, dated the 15th of October 2023, read, Charles is worth at least $8.5 million. Wesley stands to inherit everything. Once you are married, we convince Wesley to demand his share early. 60% for us, 40% for him. He will never know the difference. Another message from Veronica, dated the 3rd of November 2023, read, Wesley mentioned his father wants to meet for lunch every Sunday. How do I get him to stop? I need him isolated. Patricia's response. Tell Wesley that Charles makes you uncomfortable, that he looks at you like property instead of a person. Wesley worships you. He will choose your comfort over his father every time. Reading these messages felt like swallowing broken glass. Every manipulation had been calculated. Every wedge driven between me and my son had been carefully planned. Veronica had never loved Wesley. She saw him only as a means to access my money. On the 13th of March 2024, 2 days before the wedding, Leonard sent his final report. It was 47 pages long, documenting everything. Veronica's history of targeting wealthy men, her name change and the reasons behind it, the lawsuit in Dallas, her connection to Patricia spanning 3 years, the emails, texts, and phone records proving their conspiracy, and most damning of all, a recorded conversation. Leonard had managed to place a listening device in a public coffee shop where Patricia and Veronica met regularly. The recording was from the 11th of March 2024. Patricia's voice. Charles refused to sign over the shares. The old fool thinks he can outlast us. Veronica's voice. Then we go to Plan B. He does not attend the wedding. We humiliate him publicly. Wesley sees his father being dragged away like a criminal. It cements everything we have been telling him. Charles becomes the villain. We become the victims. Patricia. And after the wedding? Veronica. I work on Wesley. I convince him that his father's rejection proves everything I said. Within 6 months, Wesley will be begging Charles for reconciliation. And the price of that reconciliation will be the shares. Patricia. What if Charles refuses again? Veronica laughed. He will not. A father's love is his weakness. He will give anything to have his son back. We just have to make sure the price is high enough to be worth our time. I listened to that recording 3 times. Each time, I felt the rage building inside me. But I did not let it consume me. Rage without strategy is useless. I needed to think clearly. That evening, I met with Reginald Foster at his law office downtown. I spread Leonard's entire report across his conference table. Reginald spent 2 hours reviewing every document, every photograph, every recording. When he finished, he removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. Charles, this is extraordinary. You have enough evidence here to prove conspiracy to commit fraud, emotional manipulation, and potentially extortion given Patricia's phone call demanding shares. What are my options? Several. You could take this to Wesley right now and try to stop the wedding. But as Leonard warned, your son may not believe you. He has been conditioned for months. Reginald paused. Or you could take protective measures first. Restructure your assets so that even if they succeed in manipulating Wesley, there is nothing for them to take. Tell me about these protective measures. Reginald pulled out a legal pad and began writing. First, we create an irrevocable trust. You transfer your shares in Benton Heritage Construction into this trust. You name Denise, Malcolm, and yourself as trustees. Wesley can remain a beneficiary, but he cannot control or access the principal without approval from the other trustees. Can I do this before the wedding? We can have the documents ready by tomorrow morning. You sign them March 14. The trust becomes effective immediately. Reginald looked at me seriously. Charles, once you do this, Wesley will have no shares to give Veronica. His inheritance will be protected from her, even if they stay married for 20 years. I nodded slowly. This was the path forward. Not confrontation, not pleading. Protection. Do it. Prepare everything. Reginald stood and shook my hand. I will have my team work through the night. Come to my office tomorrow at 9 a.m. We will review and sign. I drove home that night with a strange sense of calm. The wedding was in 2 days. I would not stop it. I would not beg my son to listen. I would simply remove the prize that Veronica and Patricia were chasing. And then I would wait. I would wait for the moment when Their greed destroyed them from the inside out. The 14th of March, 2024. The day before my son's wedding. I arrived at Reginald Foster's law office at exactly 9 a.m. His conference room had been transformed overnight into a command center. Stacks of legal documents covered the table. 3 associates sat with laptops open, ready to file paperwork the moment I signed. "Good morning, Charles," Reginald greeted me with a firm handshake. "We have prepared everything. Let me walk you through what you are signing today." He guided me to a chair and placed the first document in front of me. "This is the Benton Family Irrevocable Trust. You are transferring 100% of your shares in Benton Heritage Construction, LLC into this trust. The trustees will be yourself, Denise Benton Clark, and Malcolm Benton. All 3 trustees must agree unanimously on any distribution of assets. And Wesley? Wesley remains a beneficiary. He will receive income distributions from the trust, according to the schedule we discussed. But he cannot access the principal, sell his beneficial interest, or transfer any rights to a spouse without unanimous trustee approval." I nodded. "Which means Veronica gets nothing." "Correct. Even if they divorce, and she claims half of Wesley's assets, she can only claim half of what he personally owns. His beneficial interest in the trust is protected from divorce proceedings in Texas." Reginald placed a second document before me. "This is an amendment to your will. Currently, Wesley is set to inherit 40% of your estate outright upon your death. This amendment changes that inheritance to flow through the trust instead. Same protections apply." I picked up the pen. "What about my personal accounts? My properties? We are restructuring those as well." Reginald pointed to a third stack of papers. "Your liquid assets, approximately $1, $2 million across various accounts, will be consolidated into a single investment account titled in the trust's name. Your home in River Oaks remains in your personal name for now, but we can transfer that later if you wish." I spent the next 2 hours reviewing every document. Reginald explained each clause, each provision, each safeguard. By 11:30 a.m., I had signed 23 separate documents. My signature, repeated over and over, felt like building a fortress around everything I had spent 45 years creating. When the last page was signed, Reginald collected the documents and handed them to his associates for immediate filing. "The trust is now active, Charles. As of this moment, you personally own 0 shares in Benton Heritage Construction. The trust owns everything. You control the trust alongside your 2 oldest children. Wesley cannot touch the principal without your permission." I stood and looked out the window at the Houston skyline. Somewhere out there, Veronica and Patricia were celebrating, believing they were hours away from accessing my fortune. They had no idea that the fortune had already been moved beyond their reach. "There is one more matter," Reginald said, pulling out a final folder. "The lawsuit against Patricia." I turned back to face him. "Tell me, based on Leonard's evidence, we have grounds to sue Patricia for conspiracy to commit fraud, intentional interference with family relations, and extortion. The recorded conversation alone proves she planned to use Wesley as a tool to extract money from you. How much can we recover? That depends on what she has. Leonard's report indicates she owes approximately $280,000 in debts. But she still owns a condo in the Woodlands, valued at roughly $420,000. If we win, we can pursue that property." Reginald paused. "I recommend we file immediately after the wedding. The timing will be important." "Why after?" "Because if we file before, Wesley might see it as an attack on his wedding day. He might dig in deeper, refuse to ever speak to you again. But if we wait until after, and if Veronica begins showing her true colors when she realizes there is no money, Wesley might be more receptive to the truth." I considered this carefully. Patience. Strategy. Not revenge, but justice delivered at the right moment. File the lawsuit on March 18, 3 days after the wedding. Reginald made a note. "Understood. We will have everything prepared and ready to submit." I shook his hand and left the office. The afternoon sun was bright and warm, a perfect spring day in Houston. Tomorrow my son would marry a con artist. I would be barred from attending. And a chapter of my life would close forever. But another chapter was about to begin. That evening, I invited Denise and Malcolm to my home. They needed to understand what was happening and why I had made these decisions. They arrived together at 7 p.m., their faces showing concern. "Dad, what is going on?" Malcolm asked as they settled into the living room. "You sounded serious on the phone." I handed each of them a copy of Leonard's report. "Read this, all of it. Then we will talk." For the next hour, my two oldest children sat in silence, turning pages, occasionally gasping or shaking their heads. Denise cried when she reached the text messages about isolating Wesley from me. Malcolm's jaw clenched tighter with every paragraph. When they finished, Denise looked up with tears streaming down her face. "Daddy, this is monstrous. How could Mom do this to you? To Wesley? Your mother made her choices long ago. What matters now is protecting this family." Malcolm set the report down. "What do you need from us?" I explained the trust, their roles as trustees, and the upcoming lawsuit against Patricia. I told them about my decision to let the wedding proceed, to not confront Wesley directly, to wait for Veronica to reveal herself. "Tomorrow you will both attend the wedding," I said. "You will be polite. You will not confront Veronica or your mother. You will simply observe and be there for Wesley when he eventually needs you." Denise wiped her eyes. "And you? What will you do tomorrow?" "I will be at home, waiting, documenting, preparing for what comes next." Malcolm stood and embraced me. "We are with you, Dad, whatever happens." Denise joined the embrace. For a long moment, the three of us stood together in silence. My family, fractured but not broken. Tomorrow would bring humiliation, but it would also bring the beginning of the end for Veronica Lane. The wedding happened exactly as planned. I was expelled from the Corinthian Houston in front of 35 witnesses. My son married a woman who saw him only as a path to my money. And I spent the evening alone in my Escalade, then alone in my home, listening to the silence. But I was not idle during the weeks that followed. I was waiting, watching, gathering. April 2024. 1 month after the wedding, Denise reported that Wesley and Veronica had returned from their honeymoon in Cancun. According to Denise, Veronica had complained constantly about the accommodations, demanding upgrades that Wesley could not afford. The cracks were already forming. May 2024. Malcolm told me that Wesley had asked him for a loan, $8,000 to cover credit card bills that Veronica had accumulated. Malcolm gave him the money but noted that Wesley seemed stressed, exhausted, nothing like a newlywed should be. June 2024. The lawsuit against Patricia was proceeding. Reginald had filed on March 18 as planned. Patricia's lawyer had attempted to have the case dismissed, but the evidence was too strong. A trial date was set for September. July 2024. Veronica made her move. She called me directly for the first time since the wedding. I recorded the conversation from the first word. "Mr. Benton, this is Veronica. We need to talk." "About what?" "About Wesley's future. About the company. About what is fair." "I am listening." "Wesley deserves his inheritance now, not when you decide to give it to him. He has worked for you for 15 years. He has earned his share. Wesley receives a competitive salary and annual bonuses. His share, as you call it, will come according to my estate plan." "Your estate plan?" She laughed bitterly. "You mean the trust you created 2 days before our wedding? The one that locks Wesley out of his own inheritance?" So she knew about the trust. Patricia must have told her after receiving the lawsuit filing. The trust protects Wesley's inheritance from outside threats. I would think a loving wife would appreciate that protection. Outside threats? You mean me. I mean anyone who might try to access Wesley's birthright for their own purposes. There was a long pause. When Veronica spoke again, her voice had changed. The pretense of politeness was gone. "You think you are clever, old man. You think you have won. But Wesley is my husband now. I have rights. I will make sure he fights for what is his. Wesley can fight all he wants. The trust is irrevocable. 3 trustees must agree unanimously on any distribution. Denise and Malcolm will never vote to give you a single dollar. Then I will make Wesley's life miserable until you change your mind. That is your choice. But let me be clear about something, Veronica. Or should I call you Veronica Marsh? That was your name before you changed it in 2021, was it not?" Silence. Complete the silence. "I know everything," I continued calmly. "I know about your career as a financial advisor in Dallas. I know about the wealthy clients you targeted. I know about the lawsuit Richard Brennan filed against you in 2018. I know about your partnership with Patricia, the emails you exchanged, the text messages planning how to isolate my son from his family. I have recordings of you and Patricia discussing your scheme in a coffee shop on March 11. Her breathing became rapid. You are bluffing. The coffee is excellent at Common Bond on Westheimer. You should be more careful where you discuss criminal conspiracies. This is harassment. I will call the police. Please do. I will be happy to share Leonard Hayes's 47-page report with them. I am sure they would be very interested in the extortion attempt Patricia made on February 28. She demanded $3.4 million in company shares in exchange for letting me attend my own son's wedding. That is a felony in Texas. Veronica's composure shattered completely. What do you want? I want you to understand your situation clearly. There is no money waiting for you. There never will be. The company is in a trust you cannot touch. My personal assets are protected. Wesley's inheritance is protected. Patricia is about to lose everything she owns in a lawsuit she cannot win. Your entire scheme has failed. Wesley will never believe you. Perhaps not today. Perhaps not tomorrow. But eventually, Veronica, people like you always reveal themselves. The mask always slips. And when it does, when Wesley finally sees who you really are, I will be here waiting. With evidence, with documentation, with proof of every lie you have ever told him. You are a monster. No, I am a father protecting his family from predators. There is a difference. She hung up. I saved the recording and immediately forwarded it to Reginald and Leonard. More evidence, more documentation, more weapons for the battles ahead. August 2024. Wesley called me for the first time since the wedding. His voice was tired, uncertain. Dad, Veronica told me you threatened her. I told her the truth about her situation. She interpreted that as a threat. She said you accused her of being a con artist, that you have some investigator following her. I have evidence, Wesley. Documentation proving that Veronica and your mother planned this entire relationship years before she supposedly met you accidentally at the gym. Would you like to see it? Long pause. I do not know what to believe anymore. That is a start, son. When you are ready to know the truth, call me. I will show you everything. No conditions, no demands, just the facts, and you can decide for yourself. He hung up without responding. But he had called. After 5 months of silence, he had reached out. The seed of doubt had been planted. September 2024. The trial against Patricia began. Reginald had built an airtight case. The emails, the text messages, the recorded coffee shop conversation, the phone call where she explicitly demanded $3.4 million in exchange for my attendance at the wedding. Patricia's lawyer tried every tactic, objecting, requesting delays, claiming the evidence was obtained illegally. But Leonard had followed every legal requirement precisely. The evidence was admissible, every piece of it. The trial lasted 6 days. I attended every session, sitting in the front row, watching Patricia squirm as her own words were read aloud in court. Denise sat beside me each day, her hand occasionally squeezing mine when particularly damaging evidence was presented. Malcolm came when his hospital schedule allowed. On the first day, Reginald presented the timeline. He showed the jury how Patricia and Veronica had connected 3 years before Wesley ever met his future wife. He displayed the emails discussing identifying the right target and timing the approach carefully. The jury members' faces shifted from curiosity to disgust as the scope of the conspiracy became clear. On the second day, Leonard Hayes took the stand. He walked the jury through his investigation methodically. The photographs of Patricia and Veronica meeting 14 months before the gym encounter. The bank transfers totaling $15,000. The phone records showing over 200 calls between the two women. Leonard's calm professional demeanor made the evidence even more devastating. This was not speculation. This was documentation. On the third day, Reginald played the coffee shop recording. The courtroom fell silent as Patricia's voice filled the room. Charles refused to sign over the shares. The old fool thinks he can outlast us. And Veronica's response, then we go to plan B. He does not attend the wedding. We humiliate him publicly. I watched the jury as they listened. Several of them glanced at Patricia with open contempt. One woman in the back row shook her head slowly, her lips pressed tight with disapproval. On the fourth day, it was Patricia's turn to defend herself. Her lawyer attempted to paint me as a controlling patriarch who had driven his ex-wife to desperation. Patricia took the stand and claimed that she had only been trying to help Wesley receive what was rightfully his. She said the emails were taken out of context. She said the phone call demanding $3.4 million was simply a negotiation, not extortion. Reginald's cross-examination destroyed her. Mrs. Hollins, you testified that you were trying to help Wesley receive his fair share. Is that correct? Yes. Then why did your email to Veronica Lane on the 15th of October 2023 state, and I quote, 60% for us, 40% for him. He will never know the difference? Patricia's face went pale. I do not recall writing that. Allow me to refresh your memory. Reginald displayed the email on the courtroom screen. This is your email address, correct? Pollins1959@gmail.com. Yes, but someone could have accessed my account. The email was sent from an IP address registered to your home in the Woodlands. Are you suggesting an intruder broke into your home, used your computer, and sent emails pretending to be you? Patricia had no answer. Mrs. Hollins, you stated that your phone call to Mr. Benton on the 28th of February 2024 was merely a negotiation. Do you recall telling Mr. Benton, and I quote, give Wesley his shares, sign over 40% before the wedding. If you do, I will convince him to let you attend. If you do not, you have already seen how this will end? I was upset. I did not mean it literally. You did not mean it literally when you demanded $3.4 million in exchange for allowing a father to attend his own son's wedding? Objection, badgering the witness. Patricia's lawyer interjected. Withdrawn. No further questions. On the fifth day, Denise testified. She described how Wesley had changed after meeting Veronica, how he had begun repeating accusations that did not sound like his own thoughts, how she had witnessed her mother and Veronica whispering together at family events, falling silent whenever anyone approached. My mother chose money over her own children, Denise said, her voice steady despite the tears on her cheeks. She was willing to destroy my father and manipulate my brother for financial gain. That is not something I will ever forgive. On the sixth day, closing arguments were delivered. Reginald summarized the evidence methodically. The 2-year planning period, the deliberate targeting of Wesley, the isolation tactics, the extortion attempt, the public humiliation at the wedding. He asked the jury to hold Patricia accountable for her actions. Patricia's lawyer made a final plea for sympathy, portraying her as a struggling woman who had made mistakes but did not deserve financial ruin. The argument fell flat. The evidence was too overwhelming. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. We find in favor of the plaintiff, Charles Benton, on all counts. I did not celebrate. I did not smile. I simply nodded and shook Reginald's hand. Justice had been served, but there was no joy in it. Patricia had been my wife for 32 years. We had raised 3 children together. Watching her be exposed as a conspirator brought no satisfaction, only a deep, aching sadness for what our family had become. The judgment was substantial. Patricia was ordered to pay $620,000 in damages plus $185,000 in legal costs, a total of $805,000. She did not have that money in liquid assets. Within 60 days, her condo in the Woodlands would be seized and sold to satisfy the judgment. After the verdict, Patricia approached me in the courthouse hallway. Her lawyer tried to stop her, but she pushed past him. Are you happy now, Charles? You have taken everything from me. I looked at her, this woman I had once loved, and felt nothing but exhaustion. You took everything from yourself, Patricia. I simply held up a mirror. Wesley will never forgive you for this. Perhaps, but someday he will understand that I was protecting him, not punishing you. She laughed bitterly. Protecting him? You destroyed his mother. You humiliated his wife. You think he will thank you for that? I think he will eventually see the truth. The same truth the jury saw today. The same truth that is documented in 47 pages of evidence. I paused. Goodbye, Patricia. I hope you find peace someday. but I suspect you will not." I walked away without looking back. October 2024. The aftermath of the trial rippled through our family. News of the verdict spread quickly. Several relatives who had attended Wesley's wedding and watched me be expelled now called to apologize. They had not known the full story. They had believed Patricia and Veronica's version of events. Now they understood. Wesley did not call. According to Denise, he was struggling. His marriage was deteriorating rapidly. Veronica had become increasingly hostile since learning that the lawsuit had succeeded. She blamed Wesley for his family's dysfunction, for his father's stubbornness, for everything except her own scheming. Denise reported that she had overheard a phone conversation between Wesley and Veronica during a family visit. Veronica's voice had been cruel, dismissive. "Your father ruined your mother. Your family is a disaster. And you just sit there and do nothing. What kind of man are you?" Wesley had no response. The confident, capable son I had raised had been reduced to silence in his own home. November 2024. Veronica filed for divorce. The marriage had lasted exactly 8 months. In her filing, she cited irreconcilable differences and requested half of Wesley's assets. Her lawyer sent a demand letter seeking $200,000 in settlement. Wesley's assets, protected by the trust I had created, amounted to approximately $95,000 in personal savings and a car worth $35,000. His beneficial interest in the Benton Family Trust was explicitly excluded from marital property under Texas law. Veronica's $200,000 demand was met with a counteroffer of $15,000. Her lawyer threatened to take the case to trial. Reginald, now representing Wesley at my request, responded with a simple message: "We welcome the opportunity to present evidence of your client's history of targeting wealthy families for financial exploitation. Discovery should be enlightening." The threats stopped. Veronica accepted $20,000 and signed the divorce papers 3 weeks later. She left Houston shortly after, presumably searching for her next target in another city. December 2024. The month of reckoning had finally arrived. The leaves had long fallen from the oak trees in my yard, leaving bare branches against the gray winter sky. I spent most mornings walking the property, coffee in hand, thinking about the year that had passed. The humiliation at the wedding, the investigation, the lawsuit, the divorce. So much destruction, and yet, somehow, my family had survived. On the 18th of December 2024, I found an envelope in my mailbox. The handwriting was unmistakable. Wesley. I carried it inside and placed it on my kitchen table. For nearly an hour, I simply stared at it, preparing myself for whatever words my son had chosen to write. Finally, with a deep breath, I opened the seal. The letter was 4 pages long, handwritten in Wesley's careful script. Some sections were smudged, as if tears had fallen on the paper while he wrote. "Dad, I do not know if you will read this. I do not know if I have earned the right to ask you to read it. But I need to try, because staying silent any longer feels like dying slowly from the inside. I was a fool, a complete and utter fool. I let Veronica and Mom convince me that you were my enemy, that you were holding me back, that you loved the company more than you loved me. I believed them because it was easier than believing that the woman I loved and the mother who raised me were capable of such cruelty. When those security guards blocked you at the wedding, I watched from inside the ballroom. Veronica told me it was necessary, that you would cause a scene, that you would ruin our special day. I believed her. I stood there in my tuxedo, watching my own father be dragged away like a criminal, and I did nothing. I said nothing. I let it happen. That memory haunts me every single night. After the trial, after Mom was ordered to pay $805,000, after Veronica filed for divorce the moment she realized there was no money to take, I finally understood the truth. Not because anyone told me, but because I saw it with my own eyes. I saw Veronica's mask fall completely. The woman who had whispered sweet words and promised eternal love became cold, vicious, and cruel the instant her scheme failed. She called me weak. She called me worthless. She said she had wasted 2 years of her life on a man who could not even stand up to his own father. And in that moment, I realized that everything you tried to warn me about was true. She never loved me. She loved what she thought I could give her. I asked Denise for a copy of the investigator's report. She gave it to me reluctantly. I read all 47 pages. I saw the emails between Veronica and Mom. I saw the text messages discussing how to isolate me from you. I saw the photographs of them meeting more than a year before Veronica supposedly bumped into me at the gym. I had been targeted, selected, manipulated, and I was too blinded by loneliness and desperation to see it. Dad, I am not writing this letter to ask for forgiveness. What I did is unforgivable. I publicly humiliated my own father. I chose a con artist over the man who raised me, who taught me everything I know, who built an empire with his bare hands and offered me a place in it. I am writing this letter because I need you to know that I finally see the truth. All of it. The ugly, painful, shameful truth about who I became and what I allowed to happen. If there is any possibility, any microscopic chance that we could begin again, I will spend the rest of my life earning it. Not with words, with actions, day by day, year by year, however long it takes. I love you, Dad. I never stopped loving you, even when I was too foolish to show it. Your son, Wesley. I set the letter down and stared out the window at the winter sky. My hands were steady, my eyes were dry. I had imagined this moment many times over the past 9 months, wondering what I would feel when Wesley finally reached out. I had expected anger, or sadness, or perhaps vindication. Instead, I felt something quieter, something like the first warm day after a long, brutal winter. Not joy exactly, but the possibility of joy, the potential for healing. I did not respond immediately. I needed time to process, to decide what kind of relationship I wanted with my son going forward. Too much had happened to simply pretend everything was fine. Trust, once shattered, must be rebuilt brick by brick. Christmas 2024 arrived quietly. For the first time in 38 years, I did not expect a call from Wesley. But Denise came with her family. Malcolm brought his wife and children. We gathered in my kitchen, cooking together, laughing at old stories, mourning what had been lost while celebrating what remained. Have you decided what to do about Wesley's letter? Denise asked as we washed dishes after dinner. I have. And I will meet with him in January. Just the two of us. Denise smiled, her eyes glistening. He needs you, Dad, even if he does not deserve you right now. Perhaps. But he is still my son, and a father's love does not disappear simply because it has been wounded. On December 26, I sat at my desk and composed a short response. I did not pour out my feelings or list my grievances. I simply wrote what needed to be said. Wesley, I received your letter. I read every word. I am not ready to forgive, but I am willing to listen. Meet me at Pappas Brothers Steakhouse on January 5 at noon. Come alone. We will talk. Dad. I mailed the letter that afternoon, the 5th of January 2025. I arrived at the restaurant 15 minutes early and requested our usual table in the corner. At exactly noon, Wesley walked through the door. He looked older than I remembered, thinner. His eyes carried a weight that had not been there a year ago. He sat across from me without speaking. For a long moment, we simply looked at each other, father and son, strangers who shared blood. Thank you for coming, he finally said. Thank you for writing. I do not know where to begin. Begin with the truth. That is all I have ever asked of you. And so he did. For the next 3 hours, Wesley talked. He confessed everything. The doubts he had ignored, the lies he had chosen to believe, the shame he felt watching me be expelled from his wedding, the gradual realization that his wife and mother had used him as a weapon against his own father. I listened without interrupting. When he finished, I did not offer absolution. I did not say that everything was forgiven. Instead, I said something simpler. Rebuilding trust takes time, Wesley. I am willing to take that time if you are. Tears streamed down my son's face. I am, Dad, however long it takes. I reached across the table and placed my hand on his. We sat there in silence, two broken men beginning the slow, painful work of healing. Some lessons can only be learned through suffering. Some bonds can only be strengthened after being shattered. And some fathers, no matter how deeply wounded, never stop hoping that their sons will find their way home. Wesley still had a long journey ahead. So did I. But for the first time in over a year, I believed we might walk that path together. And that belief, fragile as it was, felt like the beginning of something worth fighting for.